and zip back up. Hey, oh,
Recording in progress.
hi everyone, we're back. And this week we're talking about art and submissions. So let's start talking about art. Here's Mika's song. As I mentioned in one of the videos, I have way too many books, so I went to the library for some of these. And she illustrates in a much more sort of, gentle watercolor way. And it's just really lovely. I want you to pay attention to the quality of her line work, how there's thicks and thins. Some of the lines are broken. Oops. Everything isn't just like a solid outline. And that just works really beautifully with her work. And she mixes it up. So we see on this side over here, it's 3 panels and then just one big panel on the other side. And the panels themselves have a very hand-drawn quality, which is also really lovely. And that works very, very well for her style. And so she's not using a ton of texture other than the watercolor texture and little bits of pattern. She breaks it apart with chapters and really lovely, mostly, softened primary colors. So lighter yellows, reds, and blues. Beautiful. Here's a book written by Kate DiCamillo. Yes, Kate DiCamillo is writing graphic novels now, illustrated by Harry Bliss. And he too uses the line and, but very thin line and watercolor. And they're just really, really gorgeous illustrations. And so this is a graphic novel style picture book. The last one probably would be described more of as a chapter book. And this would actually probably could too, but it's definitely a shorter, hey, stop that mirror, shorter chapter book. Yes, I do talk to myself. Unfortunately, it doesn't have page numbers. I'd say it's probably 40 to 48 pages, but it's really just soulful and lovely, and the illustration supports that. Jeffrey Brown, the fabulous Jeffrey Brown. Lucy and Andy Neanderthal, Bad to the Bones. What was the first one called? Was it called The Bone or Bone People? I can't remember what it is. But, oh, gorgeous, gorgeous rag paper. So nice to feel. And it's just black and white, and it's more your sort of traditional cartooning looking. And look how he is staggering his panels so they're not all lining up, and breaking them up in different ways. So we've got, 2 panels up, 2 panels here, and then here's a smaller panel, bigger panel, smaller panel. So just reversing that. And then on the other side it's 3, and then here it goes all the way across. And just gorgeous drawing, really. Lovely shading and cool characters. Very diverse, which is also nice to see. And then there's, if you look down here, there's no panel around it at all. So it's just really interesting to see how he breaks it up. Aaron, you want to share some?
Yeah. The first is Friends Forever by Shannon Hale and Lei Wen Pham. This is the third in their Real Friends series, so that you may have read Real Friends or Best Friends.
Mm-hmm.
What strikes me about the art in this book is, I mean, not only just how like gorgeous it is, but I'll come back to that in a second. How this book, like when you read these books, they have it encapsulates young Shannon's life from a certain age. So it's like usually like 1 or 2 years of life, or maybe 3. And there's so much she puts in here. And when the panels are broken down, it's usually 4 down, which is, I guess, a little unusual in children's graphic novels. I'm used to 3, like a tier of 3 down. But this way, she can get, Shannon and Lei Wen Pham, they both can get a lot more into the book. And it's not distracting. I'd say sometimes too many panels can be overwhelming, but they do a great job of it. And I guess I'm wrong. Sometimes it does do 3. So they're breaking up the panel structure often, to fit whatever the story is requiring of them. So, a bigger panel here for a, medium to long establishing shot of the school. But I'm just kind of in awe in these books. They're just so rich in color. And, I talk about how I often leave out background details because it's not necessary. But, she's putting enough of the detail in there to still share where they are. Like, I wouldn't have put those bricks there in that panel, or I would have chosen not to do them there because it's more work. But I know that Lei Wen Pham is a really amazing and talented, and I think Caldecott winning cartoonist or at least honoree. And I mean, she's so talented. She's putting all of her tricks in here, all of her skills. It's kind of dazzling to look at. Chapter headings are interesting. She's doing a different technique here because this takes place in the 1980s, I think. She's showing these different magazine covers and using a different rendering style. I listened to an interview with Lei Wen Pham, the artist of the book, and she talked about doing all of this artwork in Procreate on an iPad, which is a specific application on the iPad for artists. And so not using any paper at all, which is incredible. But she's able to, I guess, free up more time because she's not having to scan her artwork. She's just doing it right on her iPad. She can do it anywhere. I personally like paper. I can't use an iPad myself. But it definitely, if you can use it, if you have I guess, think about the tools that save you time. That's really important because making these books takes a long time.
But it's much, much quicker if you can do it in Procreate. And everyone taking this course gets a free Procreate course. And I love Procreate. It's interesting that you haven't got there, but maybe.
Well, I've tried. It's just, I'm not interested. And it actually, I feel like it just doesn't work for me.
Yeah, you don't have to use it. And
it works for some people.
Yes.
So you find the tool that works for you, and then over time you can try to change things up. So I'm actually going to share a little bit of my own art now from the first Mr. Wolf's Class book, and I'm going to share with you the art that I actually pitched the book series with. Now, when I was trying to sell my graphic novel, Mr. Wolf's Class, I did want to make a series. I wanted to make at least 3 books. That was been my dream, to have a book series. And, I had spent about 5 years doing comic strips about the character Mr. Wolf and his students. And after about 2 years of developing characters, I had focused my script down. I think I talked about it in the last video, how I'd written a really bad script that was overwhelming. Too much stuff was happening. And so I sat down and I gave myself, this one day, the very first day in the classroom, and I would just break it down into chapters. I'd do a paragraph per chapter about what happened. And each chapter would usually feature a new student, at least at the beginning. So the first chapter is called Margot. Second chapter is Samson. Third chapter is Penny, introducing the major characters in the story. Chapter 4, Aziza and Oscar. Chapter 5, An Empty Box. This is where we get into a little bit more of the plot of the story. A student goes missing, and then that becomes the challenge of solving that mystery. But no one knows that student's missing yet, so we still have more characters to introduce. Randy, and then someone is missing, and that's when the real not climax, but the problem is now front and center. So I used this script. I had an agent, and I shared that with my agent. I actually got an agent specifically because I had 2 publishers interested in this book, and I didn't know what to do. So I had limited experience looking for an agent in the past, before this book project. But once I had 2 publishers interested, I thought, I really need to find an agent who can help me negotiate the best deal, and legally figure out what's the best way to do this and strategize. So I gave my agent 14 pages of finished art. You don't typically need that, but I was kind of coming to these publishers as a young, relatively unknown, even though I had won some awards, still a little unknown and untested. So I sent them 14 finished pages. This is just printed on my printer at home. And these 14 pages were at the beginning of the story. So they could, and they're all in sequence. So that's not out of sequence, so that they can actually be read. And it's establishing the beginning of the book, and then you want to convince the editor that they want to know more about the book, and they want to see it completed. So when I pitch a book now, my agent typically asks me to do 2 to 5 colored pages, and that's because I already have books out there. People don't really need more than that to get a sense of the tone of the book and have a style. But here I had a completed script. I don't need a completed script anymore. I just need a detailed synopsis or outline when I pitch a new project, usually about a page. And now what I do is I compile that all together. Everything comes together in one PDF that you can share. In the past, I was sharing each image as a JPEG. I didn't know how to do things properly, but luckily I did make my way, even though I was a little difficult, a little bit of a novice. Yeah, you try to want to make your materials as easily accessible as possible. And if you give an editor 15 different files, it's kind of annoying. Try to condense it all into one file.
That one PDF. And
PDF.
Yeah, and you all get a mini course in using InDesign as well. I'm just adding that.
This was all the materials I used to pitch my book project, along with I did have a short 2 to 3 paragraph summary of the second book and the third book. I called the second book Mystery in the Woods. It became Mystery Club. And I called book 3 Old Friends, New Friends. I actually completely scrapped that idea once we got around to book 3, and I came up with a new idea. And oftentimes that can happen.
And what idea was that? What was the new idea?
It was called Lucky Stars.
Okay.
And it became focusing on Samson and his friendship with Margot and an injury.
Interesting. Okay. And how long ago was it that you first submitted? Because now everything would be digital.
Yeah, I looked up, I just went through my old email, and it was 2016. So I pitched the 3 books in 2016, and I completed it within that year or a year later, and the first book was published in 2018. So
So
sometimes, like the book project I'm working on now, I just it's unannounced, but I have another year and a half to finish it, and then it will come out in 2024.
is it another Mr. Wolf book?
It is not. It's something
Ooh.
different. It's going to be a lot bigger. So
Ooh.
I have my work cut out for me.
I'm sure you can pull it off, and it's going to be fabulous. Okay, so I just want to show you this book really quickly. We have a wonderful interview with her during the course. And just to show you some like possibilities. And here she's using a lot of hand lettering. It's printed on cheap paper. It's Anique Press. And I hope they use better quality paper now. It's a few years old. She's also using art reference, cultural reference. Here is a sort of, riff on,
It's Frida Kahlo.
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Here we've got the traditional panels, and there's more sort of Frida Kahlo reference here. And it's a sci-fi book. It's amazing. It's one of my all-time favorite books from pretty much any genre, one of them, and I love it. And so here, see how she's breaking up her panels. She's using thick black lines between rather than white space. But gorgeous art. And I wonder how black the blacks are if it was printed on a better quality paper. It's really hard to tell. And here she's broken it up into 3 by 4, so that's on not this side, 12 panels. So lots and lots of possibilities. Here's Jerry Craft's class act, and he starts off with his character drawing about their life. And so minimal color, not overly sophisticated, but interesting and cool. And it's first person, and then we turn the page, and it moves into it's still in first person, but it's also second person as well. A much more sophisticated use of color and drawing. And so I think that's a cool device. Something else that I like is see how he is breaking the edges of the panels with the text bubbles, and that can be really cool. And with graphic novels, it's really important to figure out, so 1, 2, 3, 4, how, and we read from left to right, so how you guide the reader's eye to read it in the order that you want, and how do you have the text be close to the character who is speaking the text. So those are all wonderful little, jigsaw puzzle pieces to put together. Here's a tune book, and tune books have a very distinctive look. They've got this margin here. They have, really nice fonts. Here we go, Stinky. So that's the end sheet, and putting it together. It's a hardbound copy. And then here's the full title, and they just keeping it really sort of classy with minimal stuff there. Breaking the, breaking the, it's so hard doing things in reverse, breaking the boundary. When I was studying graphic design many, many decades ago, it was called violating the grid. Here we go, situating where it is taking place. And then here we've got, whoa, up the top, we've got 3 panels on top of another panel. And it's pretty clear where your eye is supposed to go. On the other side, we've got this coming out or breaking out of the panel. So there's just a lot of possibilities. And let's see what else changing the shape of your thought bubbles or text bubbles with broken lines. So there's just, push yourself, see what you can do. We humans love new and shiny, things that they haven't seen before, things that are original and unexpected. And I think this is a lovely example of that. So I think that's it. We'll be checking in with you, and have a wonderful week. Bye for now.
Bye.
Oops.